Hey there, friends. Thanks so much for being here. Your presence means the world. If you enjoy mythology, epic stories, and deep retellings, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a new adventure. The story of the Trojan War, like all great epics, begins not with armies or kings, but with a single decision, one made in the shimmering heavens, where gods wove the fates of mortals with careless fingers. Long before swords were drawn on Trojan soil, before ships blackened the horizon of the Aegean, a chain of events began at a wedding feast that should have united the divine realms, but instead sowed the seeds of the greatest conflict the ancient world had ever seen. It was the wedding of Peleus, a mortal hero, and Thetis, a sea nymph so beautiful that even the gods paused to admire her. Zeus himself had arranged the match, not out of affection, but out of caution. A prophecy had warned that Thetis would bear a son greater than his father. Zeus, unwilling to risk being overshadowed by his own child, ensured she wed a mortal instead. Yet to compensate for this slight, Olympus prepared a feast of unimaginable splendor. Immortals gathered in radiant halls, their laughter echoing across eternity. Ambrosia flowed like rivers of gold, and the air shimmered with divine music. But among the many gods invited, there was one who was not granted entry. Eris, goddess of discord. She was a troublesome spirit, quick to provoke conflict and slow to forgive insult. So when she discovered her exclusion, fury erupted within her. The slight was small, perhaps, but her vengeance would be catastrophic. She appeared at the feast uninvited, her presence like a cold shadow drifting across a warm hearth. Without a word, she tossed a single object among the revelers, a golden apple, glowing with unnatural luster. Inscribed upon it were 3 simple words: for the fairest. Silence fell. Eyes turned, and in the blink of an eye, harmony shattered. 3 goddesses stepped forward, each believing the apple rightfully hers. Hera, queen of the gods and mistress of power. Athena, the gray-eyed goddess of wisdom and war. And Aphrodite, goddess of love and irresistible beauty. Zeus, knowing that to choose one would earn the wrath of the other 2, refused to judge. Instead, he appointed a mortal prince to decide the fate of the golden apple. That prince was Paris, son of King Priam of Troy. A young man raised not in the palace, but on the slopes of Mount Ida. Prophecy had revealed that Paris would bring ruin to Troy, and so as an infant he was cast upon the mountain to die. But fate intervened. A shepherd found him, nurtured him, and the boy grew tall and handsome, unaware of his royal blood, though destiny whispered in the rustling of leaves whenever he walked beneath the pines. It was to Paris that Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite traveled, veiled in beauty that would have blinded any other mortal. They appeared before him as he tended his flock, offering promises of unimaginable power in exchange for the golden apple. Hera approached first, regal and commanding. "Choose me," she said, her voice a rumble of distant thunder, "and I will make you king of all Asia, wealth beyond imagining, dominion over countless peoples. This shall be yours." Athena stepped forward next, her armor gleaming like the first light of dawn. "Choose me," she said, "and I will grant you unmatched wisdom and glory in war. No hero will surpass you. Your name will be spoken for ages." Last came Aphrodite. She did not offer kingdoms or wisdom or victory. Instead, she offered a single promise, one that pierced Paris's heart with irresistible desire. "Choose me, and I will give you the most beautiful woman in the world." The words lingered. Paris was young, and youth is not swayed by power or strategy, but by longing. Without hesitation, he placed the apple into Aphrodite's waiting hand, and with that choice, he sealed the fate of himself, his family, and the entire kingdom of Troy. Far to the west, across the wine-dark sea, lived Helen, daughter of Zeus and queen of Sparta. She was the woman Aphrodite had promised, the woman whose beauty poets claimed could soften stone and bend even gods to their knees. Married to King Menelaus, she lived a life of luxury. But beneath the marble columns and lush gardens, boredom coiled like a serpent. Her marriage was not unhappy, but it was not the fierce passion that myths promised. So when Paris arrived in Sparta as a guest, bearing gifts and a charm that seemed woven from sunlight itself, Helen's heart stirred. Aphrodite whispered in her dreams, weaving illusions of love so potent that Helen could no longer distinguish desire from destiny. Menelaus welcomed Paris generously, unaware of the storm gathering beneath his roof. Hospitality was sacred, and to betray it was a crime punishable by the gods. But love, especially divine love, cares little for mortal laws. One evening, as Menelaus attended a funeral for his grandfather, the palace stirred with quiet footsteps. Helen slipped away, her heart pounding with both fear and exhilaration. Paris waited for her, his ship ready to sail. The night was calm, the moon bright on the water, and under Aphrodite's enchanted influence, Helen boarded the Trojan vessel. As the ship cut through the waves, carrying her eastward toward Troy, Helen looked back once at the fading lights of Sparta, at the life she was leaving behind. Whether it was love or enchantment that drove her, she could not truly say. But she did not look back again. When Menelaus returned and found his wife gone, fury consumed him. His pride was wounded, his honor shattered, and worse, his sacred hospitality had been betrayed. But he did not weep or wander in grief. Instead, he called upon his brother Agamemnon, king of Mycenae, the most powerful ruler in Greece, ambitious and eager for any pretext to expand his dominion. Agamemnon saw in Helen's abduction an opportunity, not only to avenge Menelaus, but to unite Greece under his command. For years, he had sought a cause that would justify the raising of a massive army. Now the gods, it seemed, had handed him one. So the brothers invoked the oath of Tyndareus, a pact sworn years before by all the suitors who had once sought Helen's hand. Each suitor, to prevent bloodshed among themselves, had vowed to defend the marriage of whoever won her. Now Menelaus demanded they honor that oath. Messengers spread across Greece, summoning every hero sworn to the oath. And so the greatest warriors of the age began to gather. Odysseus, cunning king of Ithaca, reluctant to fight but bound by his promise. Ajax the Greater, a towering figure whose strength rivaled Hercules. Diomedes, fierce and fearless. Nestor, the wise old king, a counselor to younger men. And above all, Achilles, son of Peleus and Thetis, the greatest warrior who would ever live. But Achilles was not so easily summoned. His mother, knowing the prophecy that he would die young if he went to Troy, had hidden him on the island of Skyros, disguised among the daughters of King Lycomedes. The ruse was delicate, and Achilles blended so well that even keen-eyed heroes might have overlooked him. Yet Odysseus, clever as ever, uncovered the truth. Disguised as a merchant, he visited the women's quarters bearing jewelry and fine cloths, but also weapons, a sword and a spear. While the other maidens admired the trinkets, one girl reached instinctively for the blade. In that simple gesture, Achilles revealed himself. When confronted, he did not deny who he was. War surged in his blood. Destiny called his name. And though he knew Troy would be the field of his glory and his doom, he agreed to sail. Thus the armies of Greece assembled at Aulis, forming a force so vast that poets would forever call it 1,000 ships. Their sails billowed like clouds, their oars slicing in unison. Armor gleamed, shields clanged, and the air vibrated with the shouts of warriors eager for battle. But the winds refused to blow. Day after day, the sea lay calm and unmoving, the ships trapped in harbor. Frustration grew. The men muttered of bad omens, and then word came from the seer Calchas. Artemis, goddess of the hunt, was enraged. Agamemnon had offended her perhaps by killing one of her sacred stags, perhaps through arrogance, for he was a proud man. Regardless, she demanded a sacrifice to appease her wrath. That sacrifice was Iphigenia, Agamemnon's own daughter. The king wavered. To refuse would doom the entire expedition. To agree would doom his child. In the end, ambition outweighed love. A message was sent to Queen Clytemnestra, claiming Achilles wished to marry Iphigenia, and she must be brought to Aulis. The queen, delighted, sent the girl willingly. When Iphigenia arrived and learned the truth, her cries echoed across the camp. Achilles, enraged that his name had been used for treachery, vowed to protect her. But fate was immovable. Whether Iphigenia was truly sacrificed or whisked away by Artemis in a last moment of mercy depended on which poet one asked. Yet the result was the same. The winds at last began to blow. The Greek fleet launched across the Aegean, carried forward by wrath, by vengeance, and by destiny. At their head stood Agamemnon, but in their hearts the men marched for themselves, for glory, for plunder, for the favor of the gods. Their prows sliced through the sea, bearing them toward Troy, a city of high walls, rich treasuries, and proud kings. A city that gleamed like a jewel at the edge of the world. A city that did not yet know it was doomed. Troy welcomed Paris and Helen with celebration, though not all hearts rejoiced. King Priam, wise with age, saw trouble in the horizon. Queen Hecuba feared the anger of the gods. And Hector, Paris's older brother, the greatest prince of Troy, looked upon Helen with pity rather than admiration. He knew this woman would bring destruction. But it was too late. Paris, intoxicated by love and vanity, believed himself untouchable. Helen, both guest and prisoner of her own choices, walked through the palace halls like a dream. The people whispered of her beauty, yet behind those whispers lurked fear. For when Paris had stolen Helen, he had not merely insulted Menelaus. He had lit a torch that would soon ignite the world. And even as Troy celebrated, the horizon darkened with the gathering storm. War was coming, and once begun, it would consume everything in its path. The winds that carried the Greek fleet toward Troy whipped across the Aegean like restless spirits, stirring the sea into white-capped waves. To the warriors aboard the 1,000 ships, the rising wind felt like destiny pushing them forward. For years they had trained, dreamed or dreaded this moment. And now the horizon unfurled before them like a scroll written by the gods themselves. Yet war, for all its ferocity, begins slowly. The Greeks did not strike Troy immediately, for the coastline was vast and unfamiliar. Their first landfall was not upon the plains before the great city, but at Tenedos, a small island whose people trembled at the sight of so many black-prowed ships. The Greeks took the island easily, seizing provisions and tightening their grip on the waters surrounding Troy. But the true invasion began at Cape Sigeum, where the armies disembarked with clattering armor and shouts that echoed across the plains. From the beach, they could see Troy's great walls rising in the distance, massive stone ramparts said to have been built by Poseidon and Apollo themselves during their punishment at the hands of Zeus. Bathed in the gold of the afternoon sun, the walls gleamed like a challenge. The Greeks stared at them with awe, and a flicker of unease stirred even in the bravest hearts, for a city built by gods could not fall easily. The first blood. Before they could march inland, however, the Greeks encountered their first obstacle, the city of Syconis, a settlement loyal to Troy. Its warriors rushed to defend their allies, meeting the Greeks on the beach in a frenzy of battle cries. Achilles was the first to leap ashore. His armor flashed like a beacon as he drove forward, cutting a swath through the defenders. He was not yet the legend he would become, but already his skill outshone all others. His companion, Patroclus, fought at his side, steady and fierce, though gentler in spirit. Other Greek leaders stormed the shore as well. Ajax, towering like a walking fortress. Diomedes, swift and lethal. Menelaus, burning with fury for the wife he had lost. The battle was fierce but brief, and soon the Syconis lay defeated, their city plundered. But even in victory, omens arose. A band of Trojan scouts watched from afar as the Greeks overwhelmed the defenders. One of them, swift-footed, sharp-eyed, raced back to Troy, the message already burning in his mind. The Greeks have come. Inside Troy. When the scout burst into the palace, panting and wild-eyed, King Priam rose from his throne at once. Though he was old, his presence carried authority. His hair was silver, his gaze both weary and wise. Around him stood the royal family, Queen Hecuba, noble and proud, Hector, tall and strong, with the weight of duty carved into his features, Paris, whose beauty seemed suddenly fragile in the shadow of impending war. Hector stepped forward before anyone else could speak. "Tell us everything." The scout bowed. "My prince, they come in numbers beyond counting. Their ships stretch across the sea like a second coastline. The greatest kings of Greece command them." A murmur spread among the Trojan nobles. Priam closed his eyes for a moment, as if listening to the breath of fate. "And the invader who calls himself Paris's friend?" he asked softly. "Menelaus, did you see him?" "He was there, my king. I saw the red hair of Sparta's lion." Paris flinched. Hector turned to his brother with barely restrained anger. "This is your doing." Paris straightened, though his confidence wavered. "Aphrodite protects me." "Aphrodite will not stand on these walls when blazing spears fly," Hector snapped. "You have endangered us all." Helen, who had been lingering in a shadowed alcove, stepped forward. She wore flowing robes of Trojan silk, yet her face was pale, her eyes troubled. "Do not blame Paris alone," she said. If I had not come willingly. Hecuba raised a hand. Child, the time for regrets has passed. Now we must prepare. Helen lowered her eyes. Though no one shouted at her, no one defended her either. She understood then that she was both guest and curse. The Greek Council. Meanwhile, the Greek army established its camp along the shore. Tents sprouted like a field of white flowers, surrounding a central pavilion where the leaders gathered for council. At the head of the assembly sat Agamemnon, his expression sharp with ambition. "We have crossed the sea," he declared, "and the gods have granted us safe passage. Our goal lies before us. Yet to lay siege to Troy directly will require time. First, we must weaken them by cutting off their allies." Nestor, the oldest of the kings, nodded. "Troy is rich and its walls strong. Their strength lies not only in stone, but in their surrounding cities. If we destroy their allies, Troy will wither like a tree whose roots are severed." Odysseus stepped forward, stroking his beard thoughtfully. "The Trojans know we are here. They will not give us time to settle. We must strike swiftly." Achilles sat apart from the others, polishing his spear. His youth made some underestimate him, but his presence radiated confidence. "Speak of strategy all you wish," he said. "But remember, when the fighting begins, it will be on the strength of warriors, not words." Agamemnon's gaze flicked toward him, a flicker of annoyance surfacing. "Warriors obey their commanders," he said coolly, "and it is I who leads this host." Achilles' eyes narrowed. "Lead then, but do not forget who wins your battles." Though tension flared, neither man pushed further. Not yet. The sea still smelled of salt. The plain still stretched empty before Troy, and the winds had only begun to carry the scent of war. Skirmishes and raids. Over the following weeks, the Greeks ravaged the countryside around Troy, attacking villages, capturing prisoners, and claiming spoils. Achilles led many of these raids, earning fame among the Greeks and hatred among the Trojans. The stories of his victories spread quickly. How he struck down 10 men in a single charge. How no spear could touch him. How his armor shone like burning bronze. Hector watched these reports with growing concern. Troy could not withstand the Greeks forever, but neither could it allow the enemy to encircle its lands unchallenged. And so, though Priam urged caution, Hector gathered a force of Trojan warriors and rode out to meet the Greeks in open battle. The first clash with Hector. The two sides met on a dusty plain not far from the Scamander River. Spears glittered, chariots rumbled, and the sun beat down on helmets of bronze. Achilles stood at the Greek front, his armor radiant. Hector stood at the Trojan front, his expression solemn, resolved. They saw each other across the field, and in that instant something ancient awakened, something like destiny, like rivalry older than either man understood. Achilles grinned. "There is a warrior worth my spear." Hector's grip tightened on his shield. "And there is a man who will bring death to many." The clash began not with a duel, but with a roar. Greek and Trojan warriors surged forward. Arrows darkened the sky. Chariots crashed together in clouds of dust. Achilles hurled himself into the fray, his movements so swift they seemed unreal. He slew a Trojan captain with a blow that shattered shield and bone. Patroclus fought beside him, steady and precise, protecting Achilles' flanks as they carved a path through the enemy ranks. Hector, too, fought fiercely. He stood like a lion among wolves, defending his men, rallying them whenever they faltered. His spear struck down Greek after Greek, but always he kept his distance from Achilles. Something in the young warrior's presence felt dangerous, too dangerous to confront recklessly. When the field was choked with dust and corpses, Hector lifted his horn and signaled a retreat. Not because he feared defeat, but because he refused to throw away Trojan lives needlessly. His men withdrew in steady formation, and the Greeks, exhausted, did not pursue far. The battle ended in a stalemate, but the message was clear to both sides. The war would not be won easily. The anger of Apollo. Among the spoils from one of Achilles' raids was a young woman named Chryseis, daughter of a priest of Apollo. She was given as a prize to Agamemnon. Her father, desperate to save her, came to the Greek camp bearing rich gifts, pleading with Agamemnon to return his daughter. But Agamemnon, swollen with pride, refused him coldly. The old priest prayed to Apollo, and the god heard. His wrath descended upon the Greek camp in the form of a deadly plague. Day after day, men fell like stalks cut by an invisible scythe. Fires burned constantly, cremating the dead. Fear spread. The Greeks demanded answers. Finally, Achilles called the leaders together. "We are dying," he said, "and we do not even know why." The seer Calchas spoke, though his voice trembled. Apollo rages because Agamemnon has dishonored his priest. The camp erupted in shouts, some accusing, some defending the king. Agamemnon rose, his eyes blazing. "You dare blame me? Shall I give up my prize while Achilles keeps his?" Achilles stood, fury igniting like oil on flame. "You put your pride above your people. Return the girl and end this plague." Agamemnon sneered. "If I must return her, then I will take your prize in exchange. I will take Briseis." Achilles' hand closed around his spear shaft. "Try, and you will lose more than pride." But for once, the gods intervened. Athena descended unseen and whispered into Achilles' ear, urging restraint. Trembling with rage, Achilles lowered his spear. "I leave the fighting," he said coldly. "Let the Greeks learn how they fare without me." He stalked away, and with him went the hope of many warriors. Agamemnon took Briseis, and so the greatest warrior of the Greeks withdrew from battle, nursing a fury that would reshape the war itself. Inside the walls, back in Troy, the citizens watched from their towers as the Greek camp grew stronger and more entrenched. Smoke rose daily from their fires. Yet for a brief time, the intensity of the raids lessened. Rumors trickled into Troy. Achilles, the unstoppable, the terrifying, had withdrawn from the fighting. Hector allowed himself a small exhale of relief, but not comfort. "It buys us time," he told his wife Andromache as they walked along the quiet ramparts. "Nothing more." Andromache, gentle but courageous, touched his arm. "Time is a gift. Our son needs you. Troy needs you." Hector looked at their infant, Astyanax, held in her arms. The boy's bright eyes shone like mirrors of the future. "Priam believes we can negotiate," Hector said. "He thinks Menelaus will accept gold instead of blood." Andromache shook her head. "Menelaus wants his wife. Agamemnon wants glory. The others want Troy's riches. They will not leave because you offer them treasure." Hector sighed. "No, they will leave only when enough of their dead fill the fields." As he gazed out at the distant Greek camp, where thousands of shielded shapes moved like ants, Hector knew that the war had entered a new phase, quiet, simmering, dangerous. And he feared the storm that would come when Achilles returned to the field. The gods take sides. While mortals prepared for war, the gods gathered on Olympus, debating which side to favor. The dispute over the golden apple still lingered like smoke in the air. Hera and Athena, still furious at Paris, sided with the Greeks, eager to see Troy punished. Aphrodite, who had protected Paris and granted him Helen, sided with Troy. Apollo, insulted by Agamemnon, also leaned toward Troy. Zeus, ever cautious, refused to choose openly. He had no desire to become entangled in the spite of goddesses. Instead, he instructed the gods to act subtly, without revealing themselves too openly. But subtlety was not something gods excelled at. Apollo sent strength to Hector. Athena whispered plans into Odysseus's dreams. Hera fanned Agamemnon's pride. Aphrodite wrapped Paris in illusions of bravery. And Zeus watched, knowing that once the first great tragedy struck, the gods would no longer restrain themselves. A gathering storm. As the year drew on, the Greeks and Trojans suffered losses, won small victories, and endured endless nights of fear and exhaustion. Lesser heroes rose and fell. Chariots broke. Spears splintered. The gods toyed with fate as casually as children tossing pebbles into a stream. But beneath it all, a mounting tension grew. An unspoken knowledge that the war's true fury had not yet begun. For Achilles still sat in his tent, seething. Hector waited behind Troy's gates, preparing for the next assault. And Paris, sheltered by Aphrodite's love, believed himself untouchable. Menelaus sharpened his sword and dreamed of vengeance. Agamemnon plotted how to maintain his authority. Odysseus watched them all, calculating, planning, waiting. And Helen, drifting through the Trojan palace like a haunting melody, wondered how long love or illusion could hold back doom. In the distance, the Aegean waves crashed again and again against the shore, echoing the relentless beat of fate. Soon catastrophe would strike. Soon heroes would fall. Soon the wrath of gods and men would ignite in a blaze that would engulf both Greece and Troy. The first 2 years of the war were only a prelude. The true horror had yet to begin. At last, after months of stalemate, the Greeks stood poised once more before the high walls of Troy. The morning sun rose crimson over the plains, staining the sky like a drop of blood spreading across silk. It was a fitting omen. For on this day, destiny would bring 2 men face to face, one driven by jealousy and honor, the other by love and pride. Their fates had been entwined since the hour Paris carried Helen away from Sparta, and now the time had come for their paths to collide. The Greek army assembled before the Trojan gates, armor clattering, spears bristling, shields gleaming like the scales of a vast metal beast. Though Achilles still refused to fight, the Greek host remained formidable. Agamemnon stood at the front, his crimson cloak billowing in the wind, giving orders with thunderous authority. From the battlements of Troy, Hector looked down upon this terrifying sight. He had been expecting a direct assault, but instead he saw Menelaus stepping forward, his face carved from determination and grief. Menelaus raised his spear and shouted, "Let Paris face me. Let the one who stole my wife stand before me like a man. Let us settle this with our own hands." Why should armies die for the folly of one prince? His voice carried across the plain, echoing up to the city walls. At first, there was silence. Then a stir behind Hector Paris himself stepping forward. His armor was polished, ornate, beautiful much like him. He carried a curved bow and a sword encrusted with gold. He looked more like a statue than a warrior. And yet, bolstered by Aphrodite's whisper in his ear, Paris held his chin high. "I will face him," Paris said. Hector turned, fury flashing in his eyes. "You? Have you lost all sense?" But Paris only straightened his shoulders. "He demands me. The gods will decide the outcome." Hector clenched his jaw. "The gods? Or your vanity?" There was no answer. Priam soon arrived at the battlements, leaning heavily on his staff. When he heard Menelaus's challenge, the old king stroked his beard. "Perhaps this is wisdom. A duel between two men instead of slaughter between thousands." Hector knew the duel held almost no chance of ending well for Paris. Yet his father was right. This could spare Troy years of bloodshed. And so, after tense discussion, the Trojans agreed. Hector stepped to the edge of the wall and called out, "Greeks, we accept your proposal. Let both armies swear oaths to abide by the duel's outcome. If Paris wins, he keeps Helen. If Menelaus wins, she returns to Sparta, and we shall offer gifts to ease the insult." The Greeks agreed. Both sides advanced to the center of the plain, placing sacred offerings between them. Agamemnon slit the throat of a black ram, letting its blood soak into the earth as a pledge of honor. Priam descended from the walls to witness the pact himself, though the walk pained him greatly. As the two armies withdrew into semicircles, leaving a wide open space between them, the world grew unnervingly still. Even the wind held its breath. The duel begins. Paris strode forward first, his golden armor gleaming like polished sunfire. He looked dazzling, radiant and fragile. Menelaus followed moments later, heavy with bronze, scarred by years of battle, his expression hard as stone. The contrast was startling. Paris, beautiful as a sculpture. Menelaus, as unforgiving as a mountain. For a moment, Paris faltered. He looked upon Menelaus, the real Menelaus, not the shadow he had imagined, and fear tightened his throat. The Spartan king was broad-shouldered, thick-bearded, his muscles bulging beneath his armor. He radiated danger, fury, and raw purpose. Paris took an involuntary step back. The Trojans murmured in shame. Hector's face darkened. "You cannot retreat now," he shouted at his brother. "If you flee, you will be the scorn of Troy, a man fit for nothing but weaving with the women." Paris flushed with humiliation. Spurred by shame and fear of ridicule, he forced himself to stand firm. He nocked an arrow and raised his bow. Menelaus, disgusted, slammed his shield on the ground. "Fight me with steel, coward. Or are you only brave when stealing another man's wife?" Paris's hand trembled, but he let the arrow fly. It struck Menelaus's shield with a thud, glancing off harmlessly. Menelaus laughed. He hurled his spear. Paris barely dodged. The spear whistled past his ear and buried itself in the earth. Menelaus drew his sword and charged. Paris's bow snapped under the force of Menelaus's shield slam. The Trojan prince stumbled, sand kicking up around him. Menelaus swung his sword in a heavy arc that Paris blocked with desperation. The blow numbed his arm and sent him crashing to the ground. Menelaus seized Paris by the helmet crest, and dragged him across the dirt. "Coward! Troy shall watch you die!" The Greeks roared with approval. The Trojans cried out in despair. Helen, watching from the walls, clutched the parapet so hard her knuckles turned white. Menelaus raised his sword for the final strike. Paris's helmet strap tore. The helmet slipped off, leaving Paris's throat exposed. But before Menelaus could plunge the blade down, a sudden mist enveloped the prince. A shimmering veil, a divine presence, Aphrodite. Invisible to mortal eyes, she wrapped Paris in her arms and spirited him away like a mother sweeping a child out of danger. Menelaus's blade struck empty air. The mist vanished. Paris was gone. "Coward!" Menelaus roared, spinning wildly. "Face me!" But there was nothing. Just a helmet lying in the dust. The outrage. The Greeks erupted in shouts of outrage. Agamemnon strode forward, voice thundering. "Trojans, Menelaus is the victor. Deliver Helen now, according to our sacred pact." The Trojans were thrown into confusion. Priam looked around wildly. Paris had been there just moments before. Whispering broke out among the soldiers. Some suspected sorcery. Others believed Paris had simply fled. But Hector knew better. His jaw clenched as he muttered, "Aphrodite." She intervened. Priam grimaced. "Then the gods have broken faith. The duel is void." Agamemnon bellowed, "Do not hide behind excuses. Your prince ran like the coward he is." Hector stepped forward, lifting his spear. "If you want battle, Agamemnon, you shall have it." And with that, the brief hope for peace evaporated. The oaths meant nothing. The blood that had stained the earth was wasted. War erupted anew. The battle that followed. The Greeks surged forward. The Trojans answered with a roar. Spears flew. Chariots thundered. Shields clashed like breaking waves. Dust billowed into the air, mingling with the cries of the dying. Menelaus, enraged by Paris's escape, fought like a man possessed. He slew Trojan after Trojan, as though each were a stand-in for the prince who had eluded him. Agamemnon, eager to reclaim lost honor, led a fierce charge against the Trojan lines. Odysseus maneuvered with cunning precision, directing small units where pressure was greatest. Ajax fought like a mountain in motion, unshaken, unstoppable. And yet, despite the ferocity of the Greek assault, Troy did not crumble. For Hector was there. He moved along the lines like a living storm, rallying soldiers wherever they wavered. No matter how many Greeks he struck down, he fought not with glory in mind, but with responsibility. Responsibility to his father, his wife, his city, and the people who depended upon him. Under Hector's command, the Trojans pushed back hard enough that the Greeks found themselves struggling for footing. And all the while, Achilles remained in his tent. He heard the clash outside, the screams, the urgent calls for aid. But he did not rise. Patroclus pleaded with him. "Let us go. The Greeks need you." But Achilles' heart was locked in iron. "Let Agamemnon fight his own battles," he said. "He drove me away. He can taste war without my spear." His voice was cold. Too cold. Patroclus felt a tremor of fear. Not for himself, but for the future. For Achilles' anger was not merely pride. It was the kind of rage that invited tragedy. Paris and Helen. Meanwhile, within the safety of Troy's high walls, Paris materialized in his chambers, dizzy and trembling. Aphrodite stood over him, radiant and terrible. "You would have died," she hissed. "Is that what you wanted?" Paris panted, sweat dripping down his face. I thought the gods... You thought because I once crowned you the fairest judge, you could face a seasoned warrior. Foolish boy. He lowered his eyes, shame and humiliation burning through him. Moments later, Aphrodite vanished, leaving him alone. Helen entered. She saw Paris bruised, shaken, his pride shattered. Her heart wavered. She sat beside him. You should not have fought him. Paris looked up sharply. You sound disappointed. I sound relieved, she corrected. Had Menelaus killed you, I could not have borne it. Her hand brushed his cheek. She meant to comfort him, but Paris's wounded ego twisted her words. You think me weak? I think you fragile. The silence between them thickened like fog. Paris clenched his fists. If he could not win honor by strength, he would cling more tightly to the love Aphrodite had promised him. A love that, Helen increasingly realized, felt more like a cage. A day of heroes. Outside, the battle raged. Greek and Trojan champions clashed in duels that would echo through centuries. Ajax faced Hector in a magnificent confrontation, two giants locked in combat. Evenly matched, they fought until nightfall, neither able to overcome the other. As darkness encroached, heralds intervened, and both warriors exchanged gifts instead of killing blows. Ajax gave Hector a purple belt. Hector gave Ajax a silver-hilted sword. Honor for a moment rose above hatred, but only for a moment. Night in the Greek camp. When night fell, the Greeks returned to their camp, weary and bloodstained. Fires flickered in the darkness as men tended to wounds, shared meager meals, or collapsed into sleep. Agamemnon brooded openly. This war drags on too long. If Achilles were fighting... Odysseus interrupted with sharp practicality. Then make amends. Agamemnon glared. He should submit to my authority. Authority means nothing if your pride costs us victory. The words cut deeper than any spear, but Agamemnon knew Odysseus was right. He resolved reluctantly to send envoys to Achilles. Night in Troy. Within Troy, the mood was mixed. Hector returned home exhausted. Andromache greeted him with relief, though her eyes filled with tears when she saw the blood on his armor, not all of it his own. Hector lifted his son into his arms, letting the boy tug at his helmet, laughing despite the weight of the day. For a few precious minutes, the great warrior forgot he was Troy's shield and remembered he was a husband, a father, a man. Elsewhere, Paris sulked in humiliation. Helen sat beside a brazier, staring into the flames, wondering how her life had gone so wrong. She felt caught in a snare woven by gods and mortals alike, unable to escape. Achilles receives the embassy. Late that night, while the camp slept, 3 men approached Achilles' tent. Odysseus, wise and persuasive. Phoenix, Achilles' old mentor. Ajax, the towering warrior who respected Achilles more than any other. They came not with threats, but with gifts. Gold, bronze, fine women, promises of honor, even an oath from Agamemnon to return Briseis untouched. Achilles listened, face expressionless. Odysseus pleaded logic. Phoenix pleaded love. Ajax pleaded duty. Achilles refused them all. My honor has been stained, Achilles said. I will not fight for Agamemnon, but you will fight for Greece, Ajax insisted. Achilles' jaw hardened. Let the Greeks burn. The envoys left in despair. Achilles stared into the darkness long after they were gone. Patroclus watched him silently, knowing that somewhere deep within Achilles' rage, something fragile was cracking. a dawn of uncertain fate. The sun would rise soon. Men would take up weapons again. Blood would stain the sand once more. The duel of Paris and Menelaus had ended with divine interference, and the war, instead of concluding, had only deepened. Fate had refused to resolve the conflict early. The gods were not done. The heroes were not ready. And the war that would shape the ancient world had only begun to unfurl its wings. The Greeks still lacked their greatest warrior. Troy still had its greatest defender. And somewhere among them, hidden in the twists of destiny, the tragedy of their intertwined fates waited patiently, like a beast crouching in the dark. Dawn crept over the Greek camp in thin streaks of gray, washing across piles of weapons, blood-stained sand, and exhausted soldiers who had slept little after the day's brutal clash. Smoke from dying campfires drifted into the cool air like ghosts wandering toward the sky. The mood was grim. Hearts were heavy. Whispers passed from warrior to warrior. Achilles had refused Agamemnon's offer. Even the sea seemed to murmur the same relentless message as its waves broke upon the shore. Without Achilles, Greece would suffer. The men felt it not as a possibility, but as an inevitability. The Trojans fought with renewed spirit after Paris's miraculous survival. And though Achilles' absence had not yet cost them defeat, a dark foreboding hovered over the camp like a gathering storm. Agamemnon awoke before the sun fully emerged, restless and angry. Though he had swallowed his pride enough to send the embassy to Achilles, the sting of rejection burned hotter than any flame. His reputation as supreme commander had suffered. Soldiers questioned his decisions under their breath. Even now, as he stepped out of his tent, the air around him felt colder. Respect had thinned into fear more than loyalty. He strode into the morning air, armor clinking. "Call the captains," he commanded. "We must strike before the Trojans do." A day without Achilles. The commanders gathered: Odysseus, Diomedes, Ajax, Menelaus, Nestor, and others. Their faces were carved with fatigue. Odysseus spoke bluntly. "Achilles will not fight. We must accept this and prepare for battle regardless." Menelaus slammed his spear into the dirt. "Then we fight doubly hard. Troy shall not celebrate while we cower." Ajax grunted. "I can hold the lines, but their numbers swell. Hector fights like a man possessed." Diomedes added, "And Paris, cowardly as he is, shoots arrows from the shadows. We must be wary." Agamemnon's voice thundered across the council. "We will attack at noon. Achilles is nothing more than one man. Greece is many." Nestor, aged but wise, murmured, "But he is one man sent by the gods." Agamemnon ignored him. With the plan decided, the Greeks armed themselves. Shields were hoisted, straps tightened, spears distributed. Horses were fed and harnessed to chariots. The army stirred like a waking giant. And across the plains, the Trojans watched. Inside Troy, preparations. From the walls of Troy, King Priam oversaw preparations for another day of war. The battlefield between the city and the sea already lay scarred with craters, broken shields, and the bodies of men both Greek and Trojan. Funeral pyres had burned late into the previous night, their smoke drifting silently toward the heavens. Hector stood in full bronze armor beside his father. The prince radiated strength, but beneath it lay the weight of responsibility heavier than any armor. Priam rested a hand on his shoulder. "We cannot rely on Paris's duel again," he said quietly. "Or on the whims of the gods?" Hector nodded. "Then we shall rely on ourselves. I will lead the charge." Priam's voice grew soft with a father's dread. "Your courage is the shield of Troy, but even shields can break." Before Hector could answer, Andromache approached with their son, Astyanax, held gently in her arms. She looked at her husband with deep worry etched across her features. "I know you must go," she said, "but each time you leave these walls, my heart struggles to beat." Hector cupped her cheek with a tenderness that contrasted sharply with his warrior's armor. "I fight so that our son will never have to." Andromache's voice trembled. "But if you fall, who will shield him?" Hector embraced them both. It felt like a farewell, though he did not intend it as one. As he walked toward the gates, the Trojans gathered behind him like a rising tide. The clash begins. By noon, the heat turned the plain into a shimmering expanse of dust and light. The Greek army surged forward from the camp, shields locked, voices raised in a roar that shook the earth. The Trojans poured out of the Scaean gates, chariots rolling, horses screaming, spears glittering in the unforgiving sun. The two armies collided with a sound like thunder splitting a mountain. The dust rose instantly, swirling around warriors locked in furious combat. Diomedes charged into the fray like a blazing star. His spear struck down 2 Trojans before a third could even react. He moved with deadly precision, guided by Athena herself, who favored him now that Achilles sulked in his tent. Ajax the Greater fought like a living fortress, his massive shield protecting ranks of Greeks behind him as he pushed forward, step by crushing step. Odysseus darted through the chaos like a shadow, striking quickly, retreating swiftly, always thinking, always calculating. But the Trojans had their champions as well. Glaucus and Sarpedon, the Lycian princes, fought beside Hector with savage intensity. Sarpedon, son of Zeus, battled with divine fire in his veins. Aeneas, young but formidable, led a band of warriors who attacked the Greek left flank with devastating force. Paris loosed arrows from a vantage point on the walls, his shots deadly, though his courage faltered whenever the fighting drew near. And at the center of it all, like a blazing flame, Hector. He cut through Greek lines with a fury no man could match. His spear struck like lightning. His shield turned away blow after blow. Men fell before him like stalks of wheat in a storm. "Push them back," Hector roared. "Drive them to their ships." The Trojan army surged behind him. Momentum shifted. Slowly, the Greeks began to yield ground. Agamemnon's rise and fall. Agamemnon saw the danger. With a war cry, he spurred his chariot forward, leading a ferocious counterattack. For a time, he fought brilliantly, rallying the Greeks, slaying Trojan captains one after another. His presence inspired his men. The supreme commander was finally acting like one. But fate is fickle. A spear thrown by a Trojan warrior grazed Agamemnon's arm, slicing through muscle. The wound was deep. Blood poured. His strength faltered. And though the injury was not fatal, pain forced him to retreat. Seeing their commander withdraw, Greek morale wavered. The lines began to bend. Odysseus shouted for the men to hold, but panic is a disease that spreads quickly. The Trojans pressed harder. The gods intervene high above the battlefield. The gods watched, restless and divided. Athena, perched upon a cloud, guided Diomedes' spear with invisible fingers. Apollo, leaning upon his golden bow, shielded Hector from harm. Hera, furious with Zeus's neutrality, sought ways to tilt the scales toward Greece. Aphrodite, radiant and self-satisfied, whispered courage into Paris's ear. Zeus watched them all with growing irritation. "You meddle too freely," he warned. "Do you intend to decide the war yourselves?" But the gods did not listen. Each was driven by pride, old grudges, and divine whims, and so mortals paid the price. The heroism of Diomedes. In the thick of battle, Diomedes burned with divine purpose. Empowered by Athena, he fought with ferocity that bordered on madness. He slew Sarpedon's closest companions and would have struck down Sarpedon himself if not for Zeus's intervention, shaking the earth so violently that Diomedes stumbled. The Lycian prince escaped, but Diomedes' wrath did not wane. He lunged at Aeneas, shattering the Trojan hero's hip with a stone. Aeneas fell, battered and bleeding. Diomedes raised his spear for the killing blow, but Apollo swept down, cloaked in radiant light. The god lifted Aeneas effortlessly and carried him from the battlefield, healing his wounds with divine touch. Diomedes staggered back, momentarily blinded by Apollo's brilliance. "Know your place, mortal," the god thundered. "You are no match for the immortals." But Diomedes, fearless in the heat of divine fury, hurled his spear at the retreating glow. Apollo deflected it with contempt. Yet the very act of striking at a god shook Olympus, the mysterious disappearance of the Greeks' strength. With Agamemnon wounded, Diomedes spent, Ajax exhausted, and Odysseus surrounded, the Greek forces began collapsing. The Trojans pushed them back step by step toward their ships. The men shouted for help. "Where is Achilles? Why does he not fight? The Myrmidons could save us." But Achilles sat by his tent, playing his lyre, singing songs of ancient heroes with Patroclus at his side. Outside, the screams of dying men drifted to him on the wind. He heard them. He ignored them. A Trojan breakthrough. Hector saw the weakening Greek lines and pressed forward with renewed determination. He leaped from his chariot, spear blazing in the sun, and struck down a Greek captain with a single thrust. "Forward!" he roared. "Drive them into the sea!" The Trojans surged. Ajax, seeing the line break, held his shield high and gathered as many men as he could behind him. Menelaus stood at his side. For a moment, the two rivals fought as allies again, but they could not hold forever. The Greeks were pushed back so far that the Trojan army could see the dark curve of Greek ships looming behind them. If the ships burned, Greece would lose everything. Nightfall saves the Greeks. As Hector raised his spear for one final push, the sun dipped below the horizon. A cold wind swept across the plain, bringing with it the first hint of night. Trumpets sounded. Heralds stepped between the armies, calling for the day's end. Hector did not want to stop. Victory was within reach. But tradition and divine decree demanded pause at nightfall. Slowly, reluctantly, both armies withdrew. Night in the camp of Troy. Troy rejoiced that night. Fires burned high. Music echoed through the streets. Wine flowed freely. Mothers embraced sons who had survived. Fathers praised Hector's leadership. Even Paris was welcomed, though more out of courtesy than admiration. Yet amid the celebration, Hector sat apart, troubled. His wife found him later, sitting alone on a balcony overlooking the quieting plains. "You were victorious today," Andromache said gently. Why do you look so burdened? Hector exhaled slowly. Because I know the Greeks will not accept defeat, and Achilles still waits. She placed a hand over his. Let tomorrow worry for itself. But Hector knew tomorrow would come sooner than either of them wished. Night in the Greek camp. The Greek camp, by contrast, simmered with dread. Menelaus paced like a caged lion. We cannot hold another day like this. Odysseus spoke in a low, urgent voice. We must think. We must plan. Sheer strength is not enough. Ajax slammed his fist into the earth. Achilles must return. Without him, we perish. Nestor's voice was quiet but firm. Then someone must reach the heart of Achilles. Someone he loves. Someone he trusts. All eyes turned slowly toward Patroclus. Patroclus swallowed. He knew what he had to do, and he feared what it would unleash. Night hung over the Greek camp like a veil of mourning. Wind swept the coastline, rattling the tents and extinguishing torches, leaving pockets of deep shadow scattered between dim flickers of firelight. The groans of the wounded drifted through the darkness like a solemn chorus. Men wept quietly for lost friends. Others prayed to indifferent gods. The smell of blood and sweat still clung to the air, refusing to dissipate despite the rolling waves. In the center of this broken camp, a single tent glowed with steady light. The tent of Achilles. Inside, the greatest warrior of the Greeks sat beside his lyre, plucking slow, haunting notes that danced with the wind. His eyes were distant. His mind was elsewhere, not on the battlefield, but on memories of his childhood, of Thetis's warnings, of prophecies whispered in the dark. Sitting near him was Patroclus, watching Achilles' fingers move across the strings. Unlike the others, Patroclus did not see a stubborn warrior or a prideful prince. He saw the boy he grew up with, the friend he admired, a man shaped by fate as much as by choice. For a long time, neither spoke. Achilles' music filled the silence. Finally, Patroclus asked, "Do you hear them?" Achilles paused. "Hear whom?" "The dying." Achilles resumed playing, though the melody grew sharper. "It is not my concern." Patroclus's heart tightened. "Not your concern? They die because you refuse to fight. You know this." Achilles' eyes flickered with anger. "Agamemnon insulted me. He took what was mine. And how many lives is your pride worth?" Patroclus pressed. Achilles snapped the next string. The sudden silence was startling. "Do not speak to me of pride," he hissed. "What of justice? What of honor? Agamemnon treats me as a slave, not as a hero. He believes the army exists only for his ambition. And yet," Patroclus said quietly, "he fights, and you do not." Achilles surged to his feet, pacing like a trapped lion. "I will not bleed for a king who spits on my name." Patroclus rose as well. "Then bleed for your friends, for Greece, for those who trusted you." Achilles stopped walking, his jaw clenched. Patroclus stepped closer. "We are not asking you to forgive Agamemnon, only to save those who are dying out there." Achilles' voice was low, wounded. "I cannot return, not while my honor lies in the dust." Patroclus saw it at last, the unmovable wall inside Achilles. Pride, yes, but also something deeper. Fear. A fear not of battle, but of fate. Achilles knew that if he returned to war, his doom would draw nearer, that his glory would cost him his life. Patroclus felt the truth settle like a stone in his heart. Then he asked the question that would change everything. "Then let me go." Achilles blinked. "What?" "Let me take your armor. Let the Myrmidons follow me." Achilles recoiled. "No." "Hector pushes the Greeks to the ships. If we lose the ships, the war ends, and none of us will see home again. But if I ride out in your armor, the Trojans will believe you have returned. Fear will spread. The Greeks will rally." Achilles stared at him with disbelief. "You would risk your life?" Patroclus smiled softly. "I would risk far more than that." Achilles shook his head. "No, I will not have you fight in my place." Patroclus reached out and placed a hand on Achilles' shoulder. "You are my friend, my brother. If I cannot change your heart, then let me change the battle." Achilles shut his eyes. For a long time, he said nothing. At last, he whispered, "Promise me you will drive them from the ships, but no farther." Patroclus frowned. "Why?" "Because Hector is mine," Achilles said, voice hardening. "And because I fear what fate awaits you if you push too deep into Trojan lines." Patroclus hesitated, but nodded. "I promise." Achilles stepped back and looked at his friend with a mixture of love, fear, and resignation. Without another word, he walked to his armor stand, a gleaming masterpiece of bronze and gold, forged by divine hands. He lifted his helmet, its horsehair plume shimmering like fire. Patroclus felt gooseflesh rise on his arms. Achilles held the armor for a moment, staring at it as if weighing the future. Then he placed it in Patroclus's hands. "Bring them hope," Achilles said softly. "But return to me." The Myrmidons' prepare word spread quickly among the Myrmidons. Achilles was returning, their spirits ignited. These warriors, forged from the bloodline of ants by Zeus himself, had been restless for months. They longed for battle. As Patroclus descended from Achilles' tent wearing the hero's armor, the Myrmidons erupted in a roar. But not one of them knew the truth. Not one recognized the man beneath the plume. Patroclus mounted Achilles' chariot. The horses, Xanthos and Balios, pawed the ground, sensing destiny in the air. Achilles stood beside them. His expression was unreadable. He leaned in close. "Bring them back from the brink," he murmured. "Then return." Patroclus nodded once. Achilles stepped back, and Patroclus snapped the reins. The chariot surged forward. Hector's command. At the same time, on the battlefield near the Greek ships, Hector pressed the attack relentlessly. His spear rose and fell with divine precision, driving the Greeks ever closer to destruction. Flames were already licking the stern of one Greek ship. Troy was on the cusp of victory. Hector could taste it, a triumph that would end the war forever. Then he heard it, a roar, a familiar, thunderous roar. The Myrmidons. Hector's head snapped toward the sound as a cloud of dust rose at the far end of the plain. Chariots gleamed. Bronze armor flashed. Dozens of soldiers beat their shields. And at the front, Achilles. The sight punched the breath from Hector's lungs. No, it couldn't be. Achilles had refused to fight. Achilles had withdrawn. Achilles had... Yet there he was, unmistakable in his divine-forged armor. A shiver ran through the Trojan army. The return of Achilles Patroclus didn't hesitate. He crashed into the Trojan flank like a storm unleashed. His spear struck with deadly skill, not as flawless as Achilles, but fierce enough to send Trojan captains sprawling. The Myrmidons followed, cutting through the enemy ranks with terrifying discipline. Achilles has returned, the Greeks shouted in awe. Courage surged through them. Panic rippled among the Trojans. Hector felt his grip on victory slipping. He shouted orders, desperate to stabilize the lines, but chaos had already taken root. Men stumbled backward, chariots overturned, shields were abandoned in fear. Patroclus drove forward, sweeping Trojans from the Greek ships, fulfilling his promise. The flames sputtered and died. The Greeks rallied and surged with renewed ferocity. A dangerous triumph. But Patroclus did not stop. The thrill of battle surged through him. The Myrmidons chanted behind him. The Trojans fled before him. He could almost believe he was Achilles. He pushed past the ships onto the open plain. Ignoring Achilles' warning, he struck down Sarpedon, son of Zeus, in a bloody duel that made the skies tremble. As Sarpedon fell, Zeus himself wept dew upon the earth, for even a king of gods could not save his son from fate. The Trojans reeled. Patroclus pressed on, drunk on adrenaline and triumph. At last, Hector stood in his path. The two warriors locked eyes, both believing they faced Achilles. Patroclus charged. Hector prepared his spear, but fate intervened. The death of Patroclus. As Patroclus lunged, the god Apollo struck him from behind, invisible to mortal eyes. The blow shattered the strength in Patroclus's limbs. His vision blurred. His knees buckled. He staggered. In that instant, a Trojan warrior, Euphorbus, hurled a spear that pierced Patroclus's side. Patroclus fell to one knee, gasping. Hector saw the opening. He hurled his spear with deadly aim. The point drove deep into Patroclus's belly. The world went quiet. Patroclus collapsed into the dust, Achilles' armor glinting beneath the sun. Hector strode toward him, triumphant. "You thought you could face me, Achilles? Even disguised, you fall before Trojan steel." Patroclus coughed blood and whispered, "Hector, Achilles will kill you." Then his eyes dimmed. The light left him. The plain fell silent, as if the world itself understood the magnitude of what had been done. Hector placed his foot upon Patroclus's chest and ripped free Achilles' helmet, realizing with a shock that the face beneath was not the face of his greatest enemy. But the damage was done. Patroclus was dead, and a storm unlike any other was coming. Achilles hears the news. Hours later, a Myrmidon stumbled into Achilles' camp, covered in dust and tears. "Achilles, your armor, Patroclus." Achilles froze. His blood turned to ice. "What have you said?" he whispered. Another warrior entered, one carrying Patroclus's lifeless body, wrapped in a torn cloak. Achilles fell to his knees. He touched Patroclus's face with trembling fingers. He let out a sound, not a cry, not a shout, but something raw, primal. A sound that ripped through the camp like lightning cracking the earth. Men stopped what they were doing. The waves ceased their whispers. Even the gods turned their eyes. Achilles' grief tore through him until it ignited into something far deadlier. Not sorrow, rage. A fury so deep and so violent that the sand beneath him trembled. He lifted his head, eyes burning like wildfire. "Hector," he whispered, "I will kill you." The war had changed. The world had changed. A new force had awakened. Not Achilles the hero, not Achilles the warrior, but Achilles the avenger. The fate of Troy had just been sealed. The night that followed Patroclus's death became a cavern of silence, broken only by the murmur of waves and the distant crackle of torches. The Greek camp lay plunged into grief. Men spoke in hushed tones, their faces pale with dread, for they had seen something terrifying. Achilles, the greatest warrior of Greece, drowned not in pride nor rage alone, but in a grief so profound that it bent the air around him. Patroclus's body rested on a bier within Achilles' tent, wrapped in linen, his face washed clean of blood. The gentle, thoughtful expression he once wore was gone. Now he seemed suspended in stillness, serene, as though sleep had claimed him rather than death. Achilles knelt beside him. He hadn't moved for hours. He had torn his hair in fistfuls, smeared his face with ash, and ripped his tunic until he looked wild and unrecognizable. His cries had ripped through the camp like a wounded animal's. Every warrior who heard them shuddered, for Achilles' grief was a storm, and storms did not pass quietly. At last, the quiet settled. Patroclus lay before him. Achilles' hands rested gently on his friend's chest. His voice was barely a whisper. "I should have been there. I should have died in your place." The silence did not answer him, but someone else did. Thetis arrives. A cold wind swept across the tent. The torches flickered and dimmed. Achilles looked up. A shimmer of silver surged through the entrance like moonlight rising from the sea. Then his mother, Thetis, appeared. Tall, radiant, her skin pale as pearl, her hair flowing like water. Her eyes held sorrow. She knew before she arrived what she would find. "Oh, my child," she whispered, moving toward him. "I heard your cries across the oceans." Achilles bowed his head. "He is dead, mother. Patroclus is dead because of me." Thetis knelt and placed her cool hands on his shoulders. "His fate was bound to war. You did not wield the spear that killed him." "No," Achilles said, voice trembling. "I wielded the pride that led him there." Thetis closed her eyes. She had watched Achilles grow, had held him as an infant, had dipped him into the river Styx to make him nearly invincible, all but for one heel. And she had known always that grief awaited him. "He died in your armor," she murmured. "And Hector wears it now." The words ignited something in Achilles, a spark turning to flame. "Hector will pay," Achilles growled. "I will kill him, mother. I swear it." Thetis looked at him sadly. "If you kill Hector, your own death will follow soon after." Achilles did not flinch. "Then let it come." His voice was steel. "What use is life if Patroclus lies dead? I will die after Hector, but first he will feel my spear." Thetis touched his cheek gently. "If you choose this path, I cannot save you, but I will arm you for it." She rose, her form shimmering like mist. "At dawn," she said, "a gift will come, the greatest armor ever forged." Then she vanished as silently as she had arrived. Meanwhile, in Troy, inside the walls of Troy, a different kind of silence ruled, one tinged with triumph, dread, and uncertainty. Hector stood surrounded by cheering warriors. Patroclus's death had been a great victory, and Hector had stripped Achilles' armor from the body as a trophy. But the weight of that victory hung heavy on him. He felt it in the quiet moments when the shouts faded. His wife, Andromache, saw the worry in his eyes as he returned to their chambers. "You look as one who has seen a ghost," she said softly. Hector set down his spear and removed the armor, Achilles' armor, piece by piece. "I fear what comes next," he confessed. "This victory, it was a curse in disguise." Andromache touched his arm. Then do not return to battle tomorrow." Hector shook his head. "If I hide behind these walls, my men will lose heart. Troy will fall faster." Their son, Astyanax, gurgled happily beside them, unaware of the shadow looming over his father. Hector kissed Andromache's forehead and looked at his child with aching tenderness. "Whatever comes," he whispered, "I face it for you both." But deep inside, he knew Achilles would come, and nothing could stop him. The new armor of Achilles. Before dawn, as dew shimmered on the sand, a blinding glow appeared near the Greek camp. The gods were awake. From the forge of Hephaestus, the divine smith, a new armor descended, borne by Thetis. It shone like nothing mortal eyes had ever seen. The cuirass was polished to a mirror sheen, reflecting the first rays of morning. The helmet bore a crest of flames that seemed to burn without heat. The greaves fit Achilles as though sculpted from lightning. And the shield, oh, the shield, was a masterpiece of the cosmos itself. On its surface danced images of stars, oceans, cities at peace, cities at war, the turning of seasons, the cycle of life and death, a universe contained in bronze. Achilles gazed upon it, awe flickering in his grief-stricken eyes. He donned the armor piece by piece, and with every strap tightened, every buckle fastened, something inside him hardened. The old Achilles, proud, invincible, reckless, burned away. What emerged was something else, something merciless, something destined. His voice cut through the morning air. "Myrmidons, gather." The Myrmidons assembled at once, awestruck by the glory of the new armor and shaken by the rage in their commander's eyes. Achilles looked toward the Trojans. "Today," he said, "we begin killing." The battle resumes. When the Trojans saw Achilles storm onto the battlefield, they reeled in terror. Word spread like wildfire. Achilles has returned. He burns like the sun. Even the gods have armed him. Hector's heart thudded in his chest. He felt Patroclus's death like a weight, and Achilles' return like a knife. But there was no escape now. Across the battlefield, Achilles unleashed a fury unlike anything the world had seen. The first slaughter. Achilles' spear flashed like lightning as he cut down Trojan after Trojan. Men fell before him without even raising their shields. Chariots split open under the force of his blows. He was unstoppable, a force of nature, the god of war made flesh. He killed so many that the Scamander River clogged with bodies. The river god himself rose in furious waves. "Enough!" Scamander roared, flinging water at Achilles. Achilles leaped aside, defiant. "I will not stop, not while Trojans draw breath." Scamander summoned a flood that nearly swept the warrior away, but the gods intervened. Hephaestus set the river ablaze with fire, forcing the waters back. The battlefield became a realm of gods and monsters. And Achilles strode through the chaos untouched. The search for Hector Achilles wanted only one thing now. Hector. He called out over the din of battle. "Hector, face me, Hector." But Hector stayed within the walls, retreating with the Trojan survivors. For even the bravest warriors felt their courage drain before Achilles' wrath. At last, the Trojans fled back to their gates, and Achilles chased them to the very walls of Troy. One by one, he struck down stragglers, driving them like sheep before a lion. Priam watched from the tower, horror creeping into his bones. This was no ordinary battle. It was massacre. Hector's face turned pale. He knew the moment had come. He could not hide any longer. Hector faces his fate. Hector pushed open the gate, stepping out alone. Gasps rose from the Trojans. Andromache rushed onto the walls just in time to see him disappear beneath the archway. "Hector!" she cried. "Come back!" But Hector did not look behind him. He stood on the plain, armor gleaming, spear in hand, waiting. Achilles saw him and stormed forward. "Hector!" he roared. "You murdered my friend." Hector tightened his grip on his spear. "I did what war demanded. Now let war decide between us." Achilles didn't slow. His rage was a burning sun. Hector swallowed, then turned and ran. The Trojans screamed in shock as their greatest hero fled, sprinting around the walls of Troy. Achilles chased him with inhuman speed, the two men circling the city 3 times. The gods watched. Athena descended, disguised as Hector's brother, Deiphobus. "Stop running," she urged him. "Face him. I will fight at your side." Hope flared in Hector's chest. He stopped running, turned, raised his spear, and saw no one beside him. Athena had vanished. Hector understood the truth then. The gods had deceived him. He had been abandoned. But he lifted his chin anyway. If he was to die, he would die standing. The dual Achilles approached, stepping lightly, spear raised. The world fell quiet. Even the wind held still. Hector spoke first. "I beg you, let my body be returned to my family. Let them bury me." Achilles' eyes were cold as iron. "There will be no mercy for you." And he struck. The duel was swift. Hector defended himself with skill and desperation, but Achilles was faster, stronger, driven by grief and divine wrath. Hector lunged. Achilles dodged. Achilles hurled his spear. Hector deflected it. Hector cast his own spear. It missed. He reached for another, but there was none. He was unarmed. Achilles charged. In that final moment, Hector closed his eyes and thought of Andromache. Then Achilles drove his spear through Hector's throat. The Trojan prince collapsed, choking on blood. Achilles leaned over him. That was for Patroclus. Hector's eyes dimmed. The greatest defender of Troy was dead. The outrageous act. Achilles wasn't done. He tied Hector's body by the ankles to his chariot. Gasps of horror rippled across the battlefield. Even the gods recoiled. Achilles mounted the chariot and dragged Hector's body around the walls of Troy. Dust rising, blood staining the earth. From the ramparts, Priam collapsed in grief. Andromache fainted. All of Troy screamed. Achilles rode on, deaf to their agony. Only when his rage was exhausted did he return to the Greek camp, where he laid Patroclus' body beside the fire. And then he made a vow. "Hector is dead. Now Patroclus. Now my brother. We will bury you with honor." But his wrath was not finished, for the death of Hector was only the beginning. What came next would shake the heavens. Night fell heavily upon the plains of Troy. A darkness deeper than mere absence of light settled over the land. A darkness born of grief, exhaustion, and the weight of all that had been lost. The winds blew cold from the sea, carrying with them the smell of blood, smoke, and sorrow. The battleground was quiet now. The screams had ceased. The clashing of bronze had faded, but the silence was not peace. It was the stunned stillness that follows catastrophe. Bodies lay scattered across the plain, shadows among shadows. Mothers searched for sons. Wives walked in trembling disbelief. And in the distance, torches flickered along the walls of Troy, where people mourned their greatest hero. Hector was dead. And worse, his body had been defiled, dragged again and again around the walls by Achilles' chariot. Every loop left a gouge in the earth, a trail of dust and blood marking the savagery of war. Each time the Trojans cried out in horror, reaching down from the battlements as though their tears might wash away the cruelty of Achilles' wrath. Priam, king of Troy, had watched it all. He had stood upon the tower, supported by trembling attendants, watching with eyes that seemed to shrink into the depths of his skull. The sight of his son, noble Hector, the pride of Troy, the shield of his people, reduced to a battered corpse dragged through the dust, broke something in the old man. He did not weep loudly. His tears fell silently, each one carving another wrinkle into his ancient face. Around him, the Trojan women sobbed openly. Queen Hecuba cried out for the gods to strike Achilles dead. Andromache lay collapsed where she fainted, revived only to grasp her child to her chest and weep into his hair, whispering Hector's name again and again. But Priam stood rigid, like a pillar that somehow withstands the collapse of an entire temple. He stared into the night, and something inside him hardened. In the Greek camp, across the battlefield, Achilles sat alone beside the body of Patroclus. The funeral preparations were nearly complete. Wood had been stacked into a towering pyre. Oil, spices, and fabrics, all gathered from spoils of war, were placed carefully atop the structure. The body of Patroclus, washed, anointed, and dressed in linen, lay ready for the dawn. Yet Achilles was restless. His new armor gleamed beside him. The fire crackled softly. But his mind drifted like a ship lost in fog. He replayed the duel with Hector in his thoughts. The moment the spear struck, the gasp, the blood, the silent fall. He should have felt triumph. Instead, he felt only emptiness. Even dragging Hector's body had not filled the void left by Patroclus' death. He had become what the gods warned him he might become. Rage incarnate, an avenger without mercy. But vengeance had not restored peace to his heart. In the darkness, he whispered, "What am I now, Patroclus? What have I become without you?" Evidently, even he did not know. His grief was a cavern with no end. The gods watch. Far above the battlefield, on cold Mount Olympus, the gods gathered to discuss what was unfolding. Hera sat furious, fuming over Troy's resilience. Athena watched Achilles with fierce pride, yet even she felt uneasy at his savagery. Apollo, god of light, stood with jaw clenched. Hector had been his beloved champion, and the defilement of the Trojan prince filled him with outrage. "This must end," Apollo declared. "Achilles goes too far." Zeus turned his ancient gaze upon the world below. He saw Priam's heartbreak. He saw Achilles' torment. He saw the unraveling of fate's carefully woven threads. "Call Iris," Zeus commanded. The swift messenger goddess appeared instantly, kneeling before him. Zeus spoke with quiet authority. "Go to Priam. Tell him to go alone to the Greek camp. Tell him to bring gifts of ransom. Tell him that Achilles will not harm him. And tell him the gods will guide his steps." Apollo added, his voice heavy, "And I will protect him from the darkness." Iris bowed and sped off like a streak of moonlit silver. Priam's decision. In the highest chamber of Troy's palace, Priam knelt beside a brazier. The fire's glow flickered over his gaunt face as Iris appeared in a shimmer of golden mist. "Priam," she said softly. Zeus commands that you go to Achilles and ransom the body of your son. Priam looked up, stunned. Go? To Achilles? Alone? Yes. He will kill me. No, Iris said gently. The gods will walk at your side, and Achilles' heart, though drowned in rage, still knows the language of grief. Priam bowed his head. For a moment, he let the enormity of the task wash over him. To face the man who killed his son, the man who desecrated his body, was nearly unbearable. But the alternative was worse: to allow Hector's body to be torn apart by dogs and birds. Priam rose to his full height, shoulders straightening. I will go. Queen Hecuba tried to stop him. Husband, you cannot. Achilles is a monster. He will slaughter you. Priam took her hands. I am not afraid to die, but I am afraid to leave Hector unburied. He kissed her forehead tenderly. Let me be a father once more. Then he called for treasure. Fine embroidered robes, golden cups, silver cauldrons, a priceless chalice from Thrace, all the wealth of a king's lifetime. When the chests were filled, Priam climbed into a simple wagon, drawn by 2 mules. He wrapped himself in a dark cloak, disguising the royal purple beneath. He looked back only once at the towering gates of Troy and whispered, Watch over them, Hector, until I return. Then he rode into the night. The journey through the darkness. Zeus sent Hermes, the guide of travelers and protector of the lost, to accompany Priam. Hermes descended silently, taking the shape of a young man with bright eyes and a gentle smile. Where are you headed, old father? Hermes asked, though he knew perfectly well. Priam looked at him with wary eyes. To the Greek ships, to beg for the body of my son. Hermes nodded. Then allow me to walk beside you. The night is full of dangers. Priam hesitated only a moment before nodding. Something in the youth's presence inspired trust. They traveled together across the silent plain. The moon lit their path with silver light. Bodies lay where they had fallen in battle, and Priam's heart ached with each shape he saw. He stepped over broken spears and shattered shields. He passed discarded helmets, their crests torn. He saw blood-soaked sand and footprints leading nowhere. As they neared the Greek camp, Hermes placed a calming hand on Priam's shoulder. Do not fear, he whispered. I have cast sleep upon the guards. No one will stop you. Indeed, the guards lay in peaceful slumber, their spears loosely in their hands. Hermes guided Priam to the heart of the camp, to the tent of Achilles. Then the god stepped back, revealing himself in full radiant form. Priam gasped and fell to his knees. Hermes smiled kindly. You have the favor of Zeus. Go now, speak to Achilles from your heart, and fear no harm. Then he vanished. Priam, trembling, parted the tent flaps and stepped inside. The moment that shook the world. Achilles sat alone inside, staring into the fire. The glow illuminated his new armor, giving him the look of a creature carved from flame. He did not hear Priam at first. The old king approached slowly, his footsteps soft, barely more than a whisper. When Achilles finally turned, his eyes widened. There stood Priam, unarmed, unarmored, frail, dressed in rags. Achilles' hand instinctively moved toward his sword. But Priam did something no one expected. He fell to his knees, lifted Achilles' hands, the very hands that killed Hector, kissed them, and whispered, Achilles, have mercy on me. Remember your father. Achilles froze. Priam continued, his voice breaking. My son is dead. Hector, the defender of my city. He was my joy, my pride, my hope. He fought bravely. He fought honorably. And now his body lies defiled outside these walls. Tears stream down his face. I beg you, return him to me. Let me bury him. Let me look upon him one last time. As a father. Achilles' breath caught in his throat. Never in his life had he imagined such a sight. The great king of Troy kneeling before him, kissing his murderous hands. And in that moment, Achilles' grief collided with Priam's like two storms meeting in the sky. He saw not an enemy. He saw Peleus, his own aged father, kneeling before him, begging for his son's life. He saw himself dead. He saw his father mourning. He saw Patroclus, lifeless. He saw Hector, broken. Something shattered inside Achilles, something ancient, something savage. He let out a cry, not of anger, but of agonizing empathy. He reached out and took Priam's shoulders gently. Rise. His voice trembled. Rise, old father. He lifted the king to his feet and wept. Priam wept with him. Enemy and enemy united in sorrow. For a long time they said nothing. Only their tears spoke. At last Achilles whispered, voice hoarse, "You loved him as my father loves me." Priam nodded, unable to speak. Achilles continued, "I have wronged you. I have wronged the gods. I have wronged myself. Hector fought with honor. He deserved better." He wiped his face with his sleeve. "You shall have him, untouched, unharmed." Priam collapsed into a chair, sobbing with relief. Achilles left the tent. When he returned, Hector's body followed, carried gently on a litter, washed and wrapped in linen. Achilles set the body before Priam. "Take him home," Achilles said softly. "Mourn him, honor him, and know this, there will be no battle for 12 days. The war pauses. Troy shall bury its prince in peace." Priam lifted Hector's hand to his lips. "My son," he whispered. "My beautiful son." Achilles turned away, tears falling freely. And for one night in all the long cruelty of war, two mortal enemies shared humanity. The return to Troy. Before dawn, Priam left the Greek camp, Hector's body in the wagon. Hermes guided him safely back to the gates. When Troy saw the wagon approaching, a cry rose from the city, a cry of grief, love, and shattered pride. Andromache screamed. Hecuba tore her hair. Helen covered her face, sobbing. The people fell to their knees. Priam stood tall, though tears soaked his beard. "Prepare him for burial," he said, "and let his name be sung for ages." A moment of peace. Across the plain, the Greeks watched the torchlines flicker within Troy. Achilles stood alone, staring at the rising sun. For the first time since Patroclus' death, a sliver of calm entered his heart. Not peace, but understanding. He whispered to the dawn, "A father mourns his son, and so do I. Perhaps we are not so different." The war would resume. Tragedies still awaited. Achilles' fate still loomed. But for this brief moment, humanity shone brighter than vengeance. And the gods, watching from Olympus, were silent. For even they could feel the weight of what had transpired. The funeral of Hector became a memory woven into the very stones of Troy. For 12 days the city mourned. The people dressed in gray. The women tore their hair in lamentation. And even the gods, it was whispered, watched the ceremonies with quiet reverence. On the 12th night, when the fires dimmed and the embers cooled, Troy returned to a world forever changed. For without Hector, the city stood without its shield, and without Patroclus, Achilles stood without his heart. Grief had altered both sides of the war-softened men for a moment, made enemies seem almost human. But the mercy Achilles showed Priam did not endure. It could not. The gods would not let it. The war, like a great wounded beast, stirred again, and when it rose, it demanded the blood of heroes. The return of war. With the funeral truce ended, both armies knew what awaited them. Spears would rise again, horses would scream, men would fall. But though the Greeks prepared with grim determination, there was a new fire among them, a single unstoppable force that strode through the camp with armor gleaming like rising dawn. Achilles. He had changed since that night with Priam. The fury remained, hot, bright, unquenchable, but now it was tempered by a strange, somber clarity. He no longer fought for pride or for kings. He fought for Patroclus. He fought to finish what his friend had begun. He fought with the knowledge that each step drew him closer to his own death, and he embraced it. The Greeks felt this change. Their morale soared. Even Agamemnon, bitter and proud, could not help but feel awe when Achilles walked past, a living embodiment of destiny. The Trojans felt it too. They watched from the walls, trembling at the thought of facing him again. But one Trojan did not tremble. Paris. He stood above the gates, gazing out at the horizon with hatred burning in his eyes. Achilles had taken Hector, his brother, his protector, the one who had forgiven Paris's cowardice again and again. If Achilles was the doom of Troy, Paris swore he would be the doom of Achilles. The Amazon queen. The first sign that Troy still had hope came not from the Greeks or the gods, but from the distant steppes beyond the Black Sea. One morning, the Trojans awoke to a cloud of dust on the horizon, an army of riders approaching with thunder in their hooves. They came swiftly, with hair braided in warrior fashion, faces painted, bodies wrapped in leather and bronze. At their head rode a figure of such fierce beauty that even the battle-hardened Trojan guards felt a surge of awe. Penthesilea, queen of the Amazons. Her eyes were dark fire. Her armor, decorated with the images of hunting lions, glinted beneath the sun like molten gold. Rumors whispered that she was a daughter of Ares, god of war, and that her arrows never missed. Priam met her at the gates with hope swelling in his tired heart. Penthesilea, he greeted her, bravest of women, why come you to Troy? The queen dismounted, bowing her head just enough to show respect. I come seeking cleansing, she said. I slew my sister by accident in the hunt. My soul is stained. Let me find redemption in battle against the greatest warrior of Greece. Priam trembled slightly. Achilles. Penthesilea's lips curved into a grim smile. I have heard of him. Behind her, the Amazon army raised their spears in a piercing cry. The Battle of the Amazons. At dawn the next day, the plains outside Troy burst into life. The Amazons attacked with ferocity, unmatched by any army the Greeks had faced. They moved like wind through grass, fast, silent, deadly. Their arrows fell like rain. Their horses danced between Greek soldiers, and for a time it seemed as if the tide of fate might shift. Penthesilea was a tempest. She cut through ranks of warriors, her spear flashing like a streak of lightning. Ajax nearly fell beneath her blows. Odysseus himself barely escaped her charge. But Achilles was waiting. He rode into battle like a blazing star, chariot wheels cutting deep into the earth. When Penthesilea locked eyes with him, the world seemed to still. "You are Achilles," she called. "And you," he answered, "are brave." They clashed. Her spear struck with the force of 10 men. Achilles deflected it. His blade swept toward her heart. She twisted away. They moved in a deadly dance, 2 flames meeting in the wind. For a long moment, they seemed equals. But fate had chosen only one victor. Achilles' final strike pierced Penthesilea's breastplate. Her eyes widened, not with fear, but with something like sorrowful acceptance. She collapsed into his arms, and Achilles, seeing her face in death, felt a strange twist in his chest, a moment of pity, even admiration. "She deserved honor," he whispered. But the Greeks around him began mocking her corpse, dragging it through the dirt as they had Hector's. Achilles roared at them to stop. "She was a queen," he bellowed, "and she died a warrior." The men fell silent. Even in death, Penthesilea commanded respect. But with her passing, another shadow fell across the battlefield. The son of the morning star. As the Amazons carried their fallen queen away, another army approached from the mountains of Phrygia. Their armor shimmered like sunlight. At their lead rode a man whose beauty rivaled that of the gods, and whose strength was said to be greater even than Hector's. Memnon, son of Eos, goddess of the dawn. He brought with him a host of warriors who fought with the ferocity of fire itself. Their arrival rekindled hope in Troy. Priam embraced Memnon as a son, desperate for a champion. Memnon accepted the mantle with dignity. "I fight for Troy," he declared, "as I would have fought beside my brother Hector." When dawn came, Eos herself lit the sky with blazing gold, lending her son her divine radiance. The battle that day was like no other. Memnon advanced like a lion. His spear shattered shields. His blows crushed warriors. He slew Antilochus, son of Nestor, saving his men from certain death. Achilles heard the cry of grief that followed, and his rage awoke anew. "Another hero," he murmured, taking up his spear. "Another death." He met Memnon in the center of the field. Warrior faced warrior. Son of the sea goddess faced son of the dawn goddess. Their battle was swift, brutal, and magnificent. Metal rang like thunder. Dust flew in clouds. For a moment, time seemed to stretch, as if even fate hesitated to choose between them. But Achilles' spear flew true. It pierced Memnon's chest. His knees buckled. As he fell, the sky dimmed, and the glowing edge of the dawn faded. Eos descended in a veil of shimmering light, weeping over her son's body. Her tears became dew upon the earth. Achilles stepped back, lowering his head, not in victory, but in respect. But with Memnon dead, another crack tore through the hopes of Troy. The prophecy of Troy's doom. That night, the torches in Troy burned low. The people whispered in the streets. Priam sat upon his throne, weariness etched into every line of his face. The losses weighed on him. Hector, Penthesilea, Memnon. Troy was bleeding its last hopes. Then Cassandra entered. She walked with the eerie grace of a prophetess cursed, her hair tangled with wind. Her eyes blazed with visions no one believed. She stood before Priam and spoke in a voice that was both trembling and certain. "Father, the end draws near." Priam closed his eyes. "I know. You do not understand," she whispered. "The gods have chosen. Troy will fall." Priam's breath caught. "How?" Cassandra pointed toward the Greek camp. Achilles cannot be stopped, but his death will come soon. And with his death, the last barrier will crumble. After that, the city will burn. Priam trembled. Who will kill Achilles? He asked. Cassandra's eyes filled with tears. Paris. Priam recoiled. Paris. Hector could not defeat Achilles. How could Paris? Not by strength, Cassandra whispered, but by fate. But Priam shook his head. I will not believe this. And as always, her prophecy went unheeded. The last hero falls days later. The battle continued. Achilles fought like a man who knew the sands of the hourglass were falling fast. His enemies fell before him in waves. But the gods had not forgotten the balance of fate. Apollo, who had loved Hector dearly, sought vengeance. Paris, guided by the god's hand, climbed the walls of Troy with a bow in hand. His fingers trembled, not with fear, but with cold determination. Achilles charged across the plain, glowing like a wildfire. Paris drew the bowstring back. Apollo whispered, "Shoot!" The arrow flew. Straight, certain, guided. It struck Achilles in the heel, the one place where Thetis's hands had held him when she dipped him into the river Styx. The arrow pierced deep. Achilles faltered, then fell. A great cry rose from both armies. The invincible had fallen. The greatest warrior of Greece lay dead in the dust. And from the walls of Troy, Paris stood frozen, his bow slipping from his grasp as he realized what he had done. Achilles' last whisper was not of glory or rage, but of Patroclus. A world without Achilles. The Greeks carried his body back to the camp, howling in grief. Agamemnon tore his hair. Odysseus wept openly. Ajax the Greater beat his chest in anguish. The Myrmidons wailed as though a god had died. And in the midst of this storm of sorrow, Thetis rose from the sea and held her son's lifeless body in her arms. The goddess wept, and the earth mourned with her. The war was far from over, but without Achilles, the fate of Troy would shift in strange, unexpected ways. Other heroes would rise, other schemes would unfold, and the city, though wounded, still stood. But the fall of Achilles had marked a turning point. The end had begun. The death of Achilles struck the Greek camp like lightning cleaving a great oak. For a long time, no one moved. Men stared at the fallen champion in disbelief, refusing to accept that the invincible was gone, that Achilles, the embodiment of war itself, lay still in the dust. His golden hair was stained with soil and blood, his armor cracked open like a broken shell. The Myrmidons wailed in despair. Ajax knelt beside the body, shaking with rage. Odysseus pressed a hand to his face, feeling the crushing weight of what this loss meant. Even Agamemnon, who had quarreled so bitterly with Achilles, bowed his head with genuine sorrow. Achilles had been a force of nature, a weapon forged by the gods. Without him, what hope remained? And yet, though the Greeks stood paralyzed, one figure moved among them with quiet resolve. Odysseus, the man of twists and turns, the thinker, the strategist. He knew the war was not over. Achilles' death was a tragedy, but it was also a turning point. And if the Greeks were to claim victory, their cunning had to rise where brute strength had failed. The funeral of Achilles. Thetis came from the sea in a tempest of grief. The waves rose as she cried out, her voice echoing across the bay. All the Nereids surfaced beside her, forming a shimmering procession of sorrow. Together, they washed Achilles' body, anointed it with sacred oils, and wrapped it in white linen. The Greeks built a massive pyre on the shore, larger even than the one for Patroclus. As the flames rose, they seemed to lick the sky. Sparks drifted upward like the souls of fallen heroes climbing toward the heavens. The Myrmidons cut their hair and tossed the strands into the fire. Achilles' horses reared and screamed, sensing their master's departure. Then came the final ritual. Thetis placed Achilles' brilliant armor, the armor forged by Hephaestus, before the Greek commanders. "Let it go," she said softly. Achilles would want another hero to wield it. But her words struck the camp like a challenge. For who was worthy? The great dispute. Two men stepped forward immediately. Ajax the Greater, huge, proud, honest, unmatched in brute strength. Odysseus, cunning, cunning, cunning again, a warrior whose mind was sharper than any blade. Each believed he deserved Achilles' armor. Ajax spoke first. "I stood beside Achilles in the thick of battle. I fought when others faltered. I saved countless Greeks. None is stronger than I. The armor belongs to the mightiest." Odysseus answered calmly, though his eyes held fire. "Achilles valued not only strength, but mind. I brought him back Briseis. I convinced him to return Patroclus' body. I stood against Hector. I saved our ships with strategy. The armor belongs to the wisest." The camp erupted into argument. Men shouted, dividing into factions. Agamemnon, eager to avoid another disaster like his quarrel with Achilles, called for judgment. "We will decide," he said, "by testimony." And so the captains spoke, some praising Ajax's valor, others praising Odysseus' brilliance. When everything had been said, one truth remained. Ajax was unmatched in strength, but Odysseus had saved the army more times than anyone could count. In the end, the commanders awarded Achilles' armor to Odysseus. Ajax's madness. The decision broke Ajax. He felt the world tilt beneath him when the verdict was spoken. His vision swam. The armor, his rightful due, his honor, given to another. He roared in fury and stormed away from the assembly. That night, madness seized him. He imagined the camp turning against him. He imagined Odysseus mocking him. He imagined Agamemnon conspiring to steal his glory. In a frenzy, he slaughtered livestock, believing them Greek soldiers. When the madness faded and he saw what he had done, the blood, the carcasses, the foolishness, shame consumed him like fire. Ajax, greatest of the Greek champions after Achilles, took his sword and fell upon it. His death cast a new shadow of grief over Greece. Even Odysseus wept, for Ajax had been a friend once, before pride and fate turned them into rivals. It was clear now. The war was eating away at its heroes, and none were safe. The prophecy of Helenus. Meanwhile, inside Troy, Priam sensed that the death of Achilles did not mean salvation. Hope flickered, but Cassandra's words still haunted him. Troy will fall. The Trojans sought guidance from Helenus, one of Priam's sons, gifted with prophetic sight. But Helenus had been captured by Odysseus earlier in the war and held prisoner in the Greek camp. Odysseus, ever the opportunist, offered Helenus freedom in exchange for knowledge. Helenus did not hesitate. He had foreseen Troy's doom for years. He said 3 things. 1. Troy cannot fall while the bones of Pelops lie outside the camp. Odysseus immediately ordered that Pelops' bones be retrieved and reburied in Greek soil. 2. The Greeks need the bow and arrows of Heracles. They had been taken long ago by the exiled prince Philoctetes, living abandoned on a distant island. 3. And most importantly, only the son of Achilles can conquer Troy. Odysseus's eyes shone with new purpose. The war had just shifted again. The return of Philoctetes. Years earlier, when the Greeks first set sail for Troy, Philoctetes had been bitten by a venomous serpent. His wound festered, the smell unbearable, his cries disturbing the army. In cruelty and fear, the Greeks abandoned him on Lemnos with only his bow, the bow of Heracles, a divine weapon. Now they needed him. But Philoctetes had not forgotten their betrayal. Odysseus, accompanied by Neoptolemus, Achilles' young son, sailed to Lemnos. They found Philoctetes living in a cave, wounded, bitter, barely alive, but still fiercely proud. Odysseus attempted flattery, then persuasion, then deceit. But Philoctetes hated him with a rage that burned still after 10 years. Only when Neoptolemus, troubled by the lies Odysseus urged him to tell, confessed the truth, did healing begin. Philoctetes saw Achilles' eyes in the boy's face. He saw the future of Greece. He saw the chance to reclaim his honor. "I will return," he said, gripping the bow with trembling hands. Not for Odysseus, not for Agamemnon, but for Achilles and for vengeance. The Greeks rejoiced upon their return, and with Philoctetes came new hope. The death of Paris. Philoctetes' bow was the doom of Paris. When battle resumed, Paris stood atop the battlements, loosing arrows with grim pride. He believed himself protected by Apollo. He believed fate favored him. After all, he had slain Achilles. But fate is fickle. Philoctetes' arrow flew straight, guided by the spirit of Heracles. It pierced Paris' chest. The Trojan prince staggered backward, pain flooding his body. He fell from the walls into the arms of his companions, who carried him into the city. Helen ran to him, her face pale with fear. "My love," she whispered, smoothing his hair. "Hold on." Paris shuddered. "Helen, I was never worthy of you. Forgive me." Tears streamed down her face. "There is nothing to forgive." But Paris knew. He died in her arms, eyes closing gently, as though surrendering to a dream at last. Helen wept, not only for Paris, but for the fate she felt tightening around Troy. Another pillar had fallen. The city trembled. The last defender, Eurypylus. After Paris's death, the Trojans sought new allies desperately. They sent envoys to distant lands, begging for help. Many refused, fearing the wrath of the Greek coalition. But one king answered, Eurypylus, son of Telephus, ruler of Mysia. He arrived with a vast army, armed with a golden axe and carrying wounds of his own destiny. He was mighty, perhaps the mightiest warrior left alive. His arrival reinvigorated Troy, and when he entered the battlefield, even the Greeks hesitated. Eurypylus fought with fury equal to Achilles's at his peak. He slew many Greeks, including warriors of great renown. His advance was like a tidal wave threatening to drown the entire army. But fate had prepared a counter. Philoctetes stepped forward. The 2 arrows loosed at Eurypylus were swift, deadly, and divinely guided. They struck true. Eurypylus fell. Troy's final hope died with him. Odysseus's most famous idea. The war dragged on. The Greeks were weary. The Trojans were battered. The death of their heroes had leveled both sides. But Odysseus saw one thing clearly. Strength would not win this war. Cunning would. He spoke to the commanders. Troy's walls will not fall to force. We must get inside. Agamemnon frowned. No gate will open for us. Odysseus smiled, a dangerous, calculating smile. Then we will open it ourselves. The Greeks leaned in. What do you propose? Menelaus asked. Odysseus gestured toward the carpenter's tents, where ships were built and repaired. A gift, he said. A monument. A trick. His eyes gleamed. A horse. For 10 long years, the plains before Troy had drunk the blood of heroes. The Scamander River had carried countless lifeless bodies downstream. The walls had heard cries of bravery, anguish, triumph, and despair. Gods had descended, kings had fallen, and destiny had woven a tapestry of unforgettable sorrow. Now, at last, the 10th year drew toward a close. Both armies were exhausted shadows of what they had once been. Troy still stood, but without Hector, without Paris, without the allies who had come to die beneath its walls. The city felt like a tree hollowed from the inside. The Greeks still camped by their dark-beaked ships, but without Achilles, many felt their strength diminished. The war demanded an ending, and Odysseus, the master of cunning, prepared to give it one. The great deception. The idea struck the Greek camp with a mix of disbelief and desperate hope. A giant wooden horse, a monument built in the likeness of the animal sacred to Troy, left as an offering. The Greeks would burn their tents, launch their ships, and pretend retreat. But inside the horse, a select group of warriors would hide, men chosen not for strength, but for loyalty, silence, and courage. Odysseus himself, Menelaus, Neoptolemus, son of Achilles, Diomedes, Philoctetes, and a handful of the bravest Myrmidons. The plan was madness and brilliance. Epius, the master carpenter, constructed the horse. Its towering form rose on the beach, polished wood, intricate carvings, hollow within. It was so massive that the Trojans, watching from the walls, gasped in awe. When it was finally completed, Odysseus stood before his men. "Hide your courage," he said. "Tonight we become shadows." Agamemnon added, "We leave our fate in your hands. May the gods favor us." The Greeks boarded their ships. The sails rose, the anchors lifted. And then, like a miracle, the Greek fleet sailed away, disappearing behind the island of Tenedos. The plains fell silent. The horse stood alone, gleaming in the sunrise. The Trojans rejoiced. When morning came, the Trojans could scarcely believe their eyes. The Greeks were gone. Gone. After 10 years, gone. A wave of joy swept through the city like a storm of laughter. People rushed to the walls. Shouts echoed, "They have fled! The war is over! Victory! Troy is saved!" Priam, carried by attendants to the battlements, looked across the deserted beach. Indeed, the Greek camp smoldered with abandoned fires. The ships had vanished. The only reminder of the war was the massive wooden horse. The Trojans streamed out of the gates like a river unleashed. They danced. They sang. They wept with relief, embracing one another. The horse drew their attention immediately, and crowds gathered around it. Some admired its craftsmanship. Some believed it a peace offering. Some assumed it was a tribute to Athena, patron goddess of Troy. But one voice rose sharply above the cheers. Cassandra, the cursed prophetess, tore at her hair, screaming, "Fools! Do not touch it! Burn it! Break it! It is the doom of Troy." But as always, her warnings fell upon deaf ears. Then another voice joined hers. Laocoon, a Trojan priest of Apollo. "Beware of Greeks bearing gifts," he shouted. "This thing is a trick. Destroy it." To prove his point, he hurled a spear at the horse. The point sank into the wooden flank with a hollow thud, almost a groan. Inside, the hidden warriors held their breath, but before Laocoon could press further, a monstrous sign appeared. 2 enormous serpents slithered from the sea, scales red as fire, eyes blazing like embers. With horrifying speed, they wrapped around Laocoon and his 2 sons. The crowd screamed as the snakes crushed them, then slid into the temple of Athena and vanished. Terror froze the Trojans. "Apollo has punished Laocoon," they cried. "The horse is sacred. We must bring it into the city." And Cassandra fell to her knees, sobbing. "No, this is the end." But the Trojans lifted the horse with cheers. The last night of Troy. It took hours to drag the enormous wooden horse through the gates. The city bustled with music, wine, feasting. Families reunited, children laughed again. The horse stood in the center of the city like a monument to their supposed triumph. Priam held a great banquet. Women danced in circles. Old soldiers raised cups of wine. Helen, pale and silent, watched it all with unease. Night fell. The Trojans drank deeper. The fires burned brighter. The guards relaxed at their posts, and the horse stood still, a dark shadow beneath the stars. Inside it, 40 Greek warriors held their breath. Odysseus whispered, "Wait." Minutes passed. Hours passed. Troy grew quiet. Near midnight, the last revelers staggered home. Odysseus raised his hand. Now. The unleashing of Greece. A panel in the horse opened silently. Odysseus dropped to the ground first, landing like a shadow. The warriors followed, weapons glittering faintly in the moonlight. Odysseus signaled to Neoptolemus, "Open the gates." The young son of Achilles nodded, face lit with fierce determination. They crept through the streets, avoiding lanterns and guards. Troy was dark, calm, unaware. At the gatehouse, the guards slept. Neoptolemus slit their throats with quiet efficiency. The gates opened, and from the shores where they had hidden behind Tenedos, the Greek fleet sailed back silently, cat-like across the water. The soldiers disembarked with torches and swords. The entire Greek army poured into Troy like a black tide. War woke the city, and all hell broke loose. The sack of Troy. The streets filled with screams. Houses erupted in flames. Soldiers burst through doors. Women cried out in terror. Children fled into the night. Ajax the Lesser dragged Cassandra from the temple of Athena, a sacrilege that would doom him. Agamemnon's men stormed Priam's palace. Menelaus, seeing Helen descend the stairs, dropped his sword for a heartbeat, torn between love and hatred. But the greatest horrors came from Neoptolemus. He moved through the city like a spirit of vengeance, carrying his father's legacy in every strike. Priam, old and defenseless, stood before the altar of Zeus, pleading for mercy. Neoptolemus struck him down. Blood stained the sacred stones. The king of Troy fell. A voice cried out from above. Hecuba, witnessing her husband's death. Her scream tore the air, a cry that legends say turned her into a hound of grief. On the ramparts, Andromache clutched her child, Astyanax, as soldiers burst in. But Neoptolemus was unrelenting. No heir of Hector shall live. And the boy was torn from her arms and hurled from the walls. The legacy of Troy shattered. Odysseus's final task. While others sacked the city, Odysseus had one final mission: steal the Palladium, the sacred statue that ensured Troy's safety. Without it, the city's divine protection was gone. Guided by shadows, he slipped into the temple and seized the statue, wrapping it in his cloak before vanishing again into the smoke-filled night. His final act of cunning ensured Troy's fall was irreversible. The fate of Helen. Amid the chaos, Menelaus found Helen inside Priam's palace, standing amid flames, her hair lit gold by the firelight. She looked at him, tears in her eyes. "Kill me," she whispered. "End this war." Menelaus raised his sword, then stopped. 10 years had not changed her beauty, nor the ache in his heart. He lowered the blade. "You will return to Sparta," he said, "alive." Her fate was sealed. The escape of Aeneas. Not all Trojans died. Aeneas, a distant cousin of Hector, received a divine command from his mother, Aphrodite. She appeared amid the burning ruins. "Aeneas, Troy is lost. Save your family. Lead the survivors. A new destiny awaits you." He gathered the remaining Trojans, including his father Anchises and his young son Ascanius, and fled through a secret passage, a flame in the darkness, a seed that would someday give rise to Rome. The dawn after destruction. By sunrise, Troy was gone, its towers collapsed, its temples defiled, its heroes slain, its streets soaked in blood. Smoke spiraled upward, fading into the pale morning sky. The Greeks stood among the ruins, exhausted, victorious, hollow. Odysseus gazed at the devastation with somber eyes. "This," he murmured, "is what victory looks like." Menelaus stood beside him. "It is what vengeance looks like." And Agamemnon said nothing, for destiny had more suffering prepared for him in his homecoming. The victors gathered their spoils, the survivors gathered their dead, and the sea, indifferent as ever, lapped gently at the shore. Closing of the epic 10 years of war. Thousands of dead, gods and mortals alike shattered by fate. Yet the story would live on, in songs, in scrolls, in whispers passed to children under starlit skies. The fall of Troy was not the end. It was the beginning of countless new journeys. Odysseus, who would wander 10 more years. Aeneas, who would forge a new homeland. Helen, who would live in regret and memory. Agamemnon, who would meet treachery at home. Neoptolemus, who would learn the cost of blood. And though the city burned, its legend would never die. For in every age, in every land, people would remember the wrath of Achilles, the courage of Hector, the cunning of Odysseus, the beauty of Helen, the fall of the greatest city the world had ever known. Thus ends the tale of Troy, a story as old as sorrow, as timeless as the stars.